and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. We have a mid-year report to the community on crime in the city of Richmond and some of the trends that we are spotting, some of the analysis that we'll be providing, as well as some of the solutions that we have in place. We'll be updating you on some of the proposals and some of the initiatives that we introduced when we were here last January to talk about crime for 2015. There will be a PowerPoint that will be used while the chief is speaking. That will be available. We can email it to you. There's a lot of information on there. We'd like to save a few trees, so we didn't print it out, but we will provide that by email to anyone who requests it, and we'll be putting it on our website as well. Sometimes on a Friday, that takes till Monday to get up, so we'll be happy to email that to you. Sound good for everyone? All right, very good. Please welcome the Mayor of the City of Richmond, Mr. Dwight Jones.
Thank you all for coming today, and I think this is a very important time for us to get together and to kind of put in context the situation that we find ourselves in today. Our city is a city that has a lot to be proud of, and so I want to put it into that context. People are moving to the city. Our population is growing. We've become a hotspot for the nation, and people are choosing to come to Richmond. Companies are choosing to come to Richmond, and we're on track to maybe, perhaps, depending on your political point of view, be the home place of the next Vice President of the United States. No laughs or anything. We're certainly experiencing a resurgence here in the city of Richmond, but that is not to say that we don't have issues. That's not to say that we don't have those things that we have to be concerned about, to be mindful of. And I've talked for the last 7.5 years about our need for strengthening our communities and the transformation that needs to take place so that we can deal with some of the issues that we face. We've tried to set up new programs and new initiatives to address our poverty rate, our educational needs, and our employment needs, and all of these things need to be attended to in order for us to have a truly vibrant city, and we have worked extremely hard on that. We've worked extremely hard on trying to deal with some of the social ills that the police department cannot handle by itself. The police department is being asked, as one police chief has said, on a national scale, handling things that really are outside of the purview of their expertise, really outside of the purview of what they have really been called to do when we call upon them to protect and to serve us. And so it's important for us to put all of these statistics into the right context and to look at it through the right lens. And we have to think about all of the ways that we're soaring as a city, but at the same time, we've got to recognize that there are important things that we have to deal with, that there are so many variables, there are so many social ills that are beyond the capacity of us, beyond the capacity of the police department to take care of. We've got to always remember that we are a city that has a large percentage of poverty and concentrated at that. And that breeds some of the issues that we have today. We have to always remember about addiction issues and the commerce that goes along with addiction issues. We've always got to remember about mental health issues. And one of the things that is a factor when we talk about these statistics today is domestic instability, the inability for individuals not to be able to handle conflict in a peaceful way. And so all of these things are difficult things that we have to deal with. And so I feel that even in the midst of our having all of the national recognition that we are receiving, it's important for us that when we look at statistics that sometimes seem disheartening, that we have to keep in mind the wraparound effect of the issues that we have as an urban area. And I know that we want to look for easy solutions, and we want to just put more police on the street. Staffing is an issue, and I've asked the chief to look at that, and he's in the midst of preparing a proposal for me to look at, and we'll do that. But it's important for us not to think that the issues are simple issues. They're issues that are complicated and need comprehensive strategies in order for us to deal with them. And so let me just thank the residents of the city of Richmond for their working with us and working for our with our police officers. We just had our National Night Out, one of my favorite events. The chief and I went around to many of the events, and we felt the positive relationship that we have in the city with our residents and with our police. And we're very proud of the fact that our community policing model has been extremely effective in the city of Richmond. And it's been really great to see that our officers don't wait until National Night Out to get connected to the people in our community, but they are willing to go the extra mile to be connected to our citizens. And it's not out of the ordinary to see our officers giving a kid a bike. And a lot of our officers can really dance very well, and so they dance with our young people in the city, and it really is good to see the relationship that we have. And I know that the officers of this police force are committed to our city, and I know that their hearts break when they hear about homicides. I know that when the chief calls me about every homicide that we have in the city, I know that there is a personal involvement that we all have here together. And so you've come today to hear statistics. You've come here today to hear about the things that are going on, but I just want to make sure that we put it in the proper context and that we understand that this is not just a police issue, but this is a community issue. This is something that we all have to work on together in order to make sure that we have the positive results that we have had across the years. And so with that, I'm going to bring up our chief. I'm very proud to have the pleasure to work with him. He's done a tremendous job, and the community has connected with him. He's connected with the community, connected with our men and women in blue, and I feel that he's doing a fine job. So with that, Chief Durham, you can come to the podium.
Well, good afternoon. I would like to take this opportunity to provide you with an update on the crime trends for the first half of calendar year 2016 and the initiatives that we have been working on to address these trends. The mayor and I speak often about what the police department is doing. He often asks me, just as he did 3 o'clock this past Saturday morning, yet I'm on the scene of another homicide, a senseless murder. What's the plan? What are we going to do to address this violence? But to take it even further, other than just asking questions, he often provides recommendations on how we should proceed as a government to address the violence. So I'd like to thank the mayor for his continued interest in what we do as a police department and for his support in the efforts to keep our city safe. And I'd like to especially thank my fellow officers of the Richmond Police Department, our law enforcement partners across the region, you, the media, who tells our story and gets information out, but most importantly, the community for their continued help, support, and partnerships. We had planned to hold this mid-year report to the community to keep the community informed in early July. But as you all know, due to events that occurred across the country, violent events involving police officers, we felt that it would be best to wait. As such, I will be discussing where we stand overall in crime for the first 7 months of the year. That's January 1st to July 31st. In light of what's happening in other cities, the citizens of Richmond should be very proud of themselves and proud of their police department, because we have been able to avoid the tension, acrimony, and fear that have gripped other cities. In fact, we've done this despite the efforts of some individuals and groups to divide us with their attempts to create mistrust and misunderstanding. We've done this because we've been engaged. We communicate. We have those hard truths discussions. There are not many public meetings that happen in this city where officers of the RPD are not present. From town hall meetings, symposiums, neighborhood association meetings, city council meetings, command walks, workshops, you name it, we're there. For example, earlier this week, RPD officers attended a majority of the more than 80 National Night events. And we stay involved, and it shows. The outreach, community engagement, and partnerships that we have put in place, they're working. As a matter of fact, just a few hours ago, my command staff and I met with the ACLU to address their concerns. It was a very positive and productive meeting. When I attend law enforcement conferences across this country and other events that brings chief of police from departments together, I am proud, I am honored, and I'm most importantly eager to tell our story here in Richmond, to speak with the utmost confidence of all the positive things that we're doing here consistently to build relationships in our fantastic city because we're doing it right. For example, last weekend, we received an Accreditation with Excellence Award from the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement, known as CALIA for short. Not everyone can get this award. They stated in part, your agency has clearly demonstrated a commitment to professionalism. The work of your organization toward attaining this internationally recognized credential is indicative of your sound leadership as well as a practitioner in support of adherence to standards. As we look at major crime categories for the first half of 2016, again up to July 31st, you will see that we have some work to do because we have seen an increase in major crimes. But let me be clear, crime in Richmond is not out of control. I want to repeat that again. Crime in Richmond is not out of control, but we have to be realistic. Perception is reality. Yes, crime is up when compared to last year, but please remember, last year's crime rate presented a historic low. So we're up against some low numbers this year. In fact, last year we had the fewest number of violent crimes that the city has seen in 45 years. And I think that's important. A lot of times we forget that. As you look at this crime map, again, from January 1 to July 31st, this was last year when we talked about where we were this time. Even if you remove that, where we are today with the 5,461 major crimes, is still lowest in recent years. So again, crime is not out of control in the city of Richmond. However, we will continue to keep fighting. We will continue to keep working with our community and our partners in law enforcement and other city agencies to continue to ensure that we drive these numbers down even further. When we look at violent crime, to date, 683, to July 31st. But again, if we were to move to 609 from last year when we had a historic low, we will still see that we are still below where we were previous years, prior years. Crime is not out of control. I just want to assure the community of this. When we look at our crime, I think it's important. A majority of our crime, our violent crime, is only 12%. But all of our other crimes that we're experiencing significant increases are our property crimes. So for instance, 235 more reported incidents from theft of motor vehicles. That has been our driving force in property crime for the last couple of years. So that's an increase of 26. So again, 235 more reported crimes from theft from autos. 148 more reported incidents of motor vehicle theft. Stolen cars, a 52% increase this year compared to last year at the same time. And 74 more reported of shoplifting, a 15% increase compared to last year. Violent offenders with guns are still a challenge. You know, I was thinking the other day, to me it appears here in the city of Richmond, in our city, that having a gun is like having a cell phone. Everybody should have one. I just never experienced anything like this. 131 victims have been shot in violent crimes. That's up from 104 last year. Working hard to combat gun violence, we have taken so far since July, and that's July 31st, 460 illegally held firearms from bandits, from criminals off the street. That is unacceptable for our community. But we have to have the challenges, we have to have the resources, and we have to have the intelligence from the community to tell us who are having these guns, these firearms, possessing them illegally. When we look at what the density, this is a density map, and when you overlay with the city map, the density where a majority of our crime is, as the mayor stated, we have our challenges in certain communities, especially our poverty-stricken communities. If you look at Mosby Court, Gilpin Court, this area surrounding that, South Side, on the South Side, South Richmond, Hillside, we have our challenges. That's where a majority of our crimes are being committed. When you look at it, there are so many social, economic factors that impact crime. Domestic violence, mental, emotional health, physical health, income, poverty, access to services, access to quality education, meaningful employment, opportunities, support network, family stability, and much more. Some of our most challenging areas of the city are those that are struggling economically, and it shows. Time and time again, we responded to those consistent calls for service and have to deal with that. The most dense area of crimes are, again, our most economically challenged areas here in the city. And the sad thing is that The offenders are victimizing the most vulnerable people, our citizens in these communities. I think this is important for us to study while we're here today. So when we look at the number of homicides, and anybody knows, I tell you, our guys and girls, the men and women of our department, when we get that call for a homicide, it's very touching, it's disheartening, and it hurts. So last year at this time, we had 18. Said it for a good year. Today we're at 33. But when you look at the motives, drug-related, 2 for robbery, 6 for our argument, 7 domestic, that's up from 2 last year. 3 retaliation, 1 child abuse, 1 innocent bystander, 6 unclassified, for a total of 33. But what's telling also, when we talk about police not doing their job, you're not there. This is interesting. 16 of the 33 homicides happened inside of a residence. There is nothing, ladies and gentlemen, that we can do about that. Inside of someone's private residence, or inside of a motel room. There's nothing we can do about that except respond. But there's something that the community do, and I'll get to that later. However, 2 were inside of a vehicle, and 2 were in the rear of a house. So when you look at that, what that's telling you, these are a lot of things that's happening inside a community, inside of a house, and that we need the community support when they recognize that there are some issues and challenges in their communities. 13 of the other 33 were outside in the street, sidewalk, or parking lot. Domestic violence related homicides have increased dramatically. Another 9 homicides stem from arguments or retaliation. People, it's just so simple to walk away. But when you have that firearm on your person, that gives you a lot of power and energy. And when you pull that trigger, it changes the world, the life of families, and even the suspect who pulled that trigger, because their families are impacted, and most importantly, they're impacted once we arrest them. We looked at the backgrounds. What's important, we looked at the backgrounds of several of these recent homicides, the individuals involved, meaning the decedents, the victims, and the offenders. And without exception, all of them had extensive backgrounds. To put it in more context, there was one 25-year-old offender, 47 police contacts, 25 years old. Some people just not going to do right, folks. Some people need to be arrested. Let me be clear. No one deserves to lose their lives, especially to an act of violence. But what these backgrounds tells us, that there are numerous opportunities for someone to intervene. And when I go back and talking about families and all that, families, you have an obligation, mothers, sons, brothers, cousins, to intervene in these folks' life. You know they're doing wrong. But sometimes it's hard because that's a loved one. But you have 2 options. Either you're going to help them, or they're going to end up losing their life, as we're seeing again based on the information that we received, or they're going to get locked up. But you have to intervene. I'm pleading for the family members to talk to your loved ones, and if you need help, call us. That may be the best thing to save their lives, to put them away. In the end, there are too many people engaging in high-risk violent behavior, too many who choose violence to settle petty arguments and disagreements, or settle a score when they feel disrespected. We need the community's help to intervene again and stop these individuals. I like to tell the story. In May, I was on the scene of, again, another loss of life. And as the group of family and friends were assembling, an individual pulls up, gets out the car, and the first question he asked this group was, did they find the gun and the drugs? Not about the person that was killed, his or her well-being, is they alive, dead, but did they find the guns and drugs? Those are the types of attitudes and mindsets that we're dealing in this community. And you want the police to do what? We're here doing everything we can, but we can't do it alone. When we talk about citywide clearance rates, our detectives and officers do a tremendous job. If only you could know and see the work. Once that yellow tape comes down, they're still working around the clock, sometimes weeks at a time, to bring that case to closure. It's important to us. But what's more important, the reason we're so successful with these closure rates, for instance, homicide, 58% closure rate, rape, 16%, robbery, 34%, aggravated assault, 54%, for the overall violent crime, 44%. But even with property crimes, and those closure rates are above the national standards, So we're doing something right. But besides the hard work of the dedicated men and women of your police department, it's the citizens. I am so pleased that when I get a briefing from my captain or my deputy chief that, hey, we were able to close this because a tip came from the citizens. That means they're fed up. They want to do the right thing for their community. They want to do right by us. And that's what it's going to take for us to achieve our goal, again, driving these numbers down, to continue support for the community. Right here is the 14 unsolved homicides. We're going to pass that information on to you. And let me be clear. So under unsolved homicide, that doesn't mean we call it a stone cold whodunit, meaning we have nothing, no leads, no witnesses, anything. But what's important, on a majority of these unsolved homicides, we do have names of possible suspects. But it's more than that. We need the community support. If you've seen something, if you heard something, a conversation, somebody's seen a video, because there's a lot of stuff out on social media, we need that information. We want to have a successful, a good case, so we can have a successful prosecution and bringing these, closing these cases, giving the family some justice, but bringing these folks to justice also. We want to give the families a sense of peace of mind. Back in February, I believe, late February in this very room, we had a presentation to the media to tell us about one of the things, again, to drive down the domestic violence crimes, especially homicides in the city. We partnered with the YWCA, and these are the stats since. And then what that program is, if our officers respond to a scene of a domestic violence, we call the YWCA out, and they come and they do a lethality assessment, meaning if you stay in this situation, whoever it is, if you stay in this situation, you may become the victim of a homicide. The great thing, our officers were able to have 469 victims screened. 253 of those were excess of being in high danger in those relationships. 253. So I would like to think that by our officers going out there partnering, our partnership with YWCA, that hopefully those 253 numbers, or the people out of that number, will not become a victim of a homicide in our city. 159 were assessed as non-high danger. Doesn't mean there's not a threat, but non-high danger. And 57 chose just not to participate. Those are the ones that I'm worried about. These folks are getting educated here, those in high danger and non-high, but those who choose not to participate out of fear, retaliation by the spouse or the person that they're involved in, their partner, that's the number that scares us, the 57. As you all know, every year we have a firearms fugitive initiative, and in the first 2 months, 136 firearms were seized, 147 felony arrests, 129 felony warrants served, and we're not even finished yet. We have a couple of weeks to go. This is interesting, 2,400 traffic stops, 80 pedestrian approaches, and only 1 complaint. I think my department's getting it. I think they heard me loud and clear. We're going to put the human side to the policing. We're going to treat people with respect. And Gun 250 should I say, Gun 250, this is our in partnership with Metro Richmond Crime Stoppers. We started this on May 1st. Again, this is important. Every time I go, I have cards in my pocket, my officers, we pass this information out. It's important. You can remain anonymous. You know, there's so much fear in our communities of retaliation. With the Gun 250 program, it's anonymous. It's a text tip line, 274-637, 274-637. You text it, you'll get a response, you give us the information. If that information pans out where we either make an arrest or recover firearms, you can receive, the reporting person can receive up to $250. Go back. Oh, sorry. So far this year, 61 tips, 14 illegally held firearms were recovered. We made 5 arrests, 6 rewards paid. So out of that 61 tips, we're still additionally having additional investigations going on. You know, we just can't walk up. It's easier for us to make an approach on someone on the street, on public space, to question them and find out if they have the weapon. But it takes longer time to investigate those firearms that are reported being held inside of a home or stored inside of a home. At this time, I'll take questions from the media. All right, I must have did a good job, Paul.
You're not going to give up that piece.
Sorry. I understand that right now RPD is down 35 sworn officers. Is that correct?
36.
36. Okay. When was the last time that RPD was this low staffed?
Probably about 5 years from looking at the reports. 5 years.
How does that impact response times to the community?
We are seeing an increase in our response time, and that's a good question. Again, as the mayor had stated earlier, he's giving marching orders. I'm finalizing a report on several proposals on how we can strengthen or increase the staffing. As you all know, I have a couple of Tuesdays ago went to the public safety meeting to give a presentation on that. It has an impact. Our visibility. Visibility is important. That is one deterrent, as you know, to crime, visibility. But our officers, they're really what we call chasing the radio, running from radio assignment to radio assignment. But we're not, it's not from a lack of effort. We are still responding and answering those calls for service. And then, population is going up. Cost for service is going to go up. So that's important. One thing that we pride ourselves on being responsive, good customer care. Good customer care.
When was the last time the crime rate was at the level it's at right now, the violent crime rate?
Repeat that. Let me get clear.
When was the last time the crime rate was at the level it's at right now, the violent crime rate?
Well, I mean, if you look at the numbers, this is the lowest it's been in 2014, and we're still low compared. I mean, it's been high. Crime has been trending while the population been going up. And again, going back for the last year, 45 years low in violent crime. So crime is actually going down. And to be today, even though it was 12% in violent crime, 7% in property crime, and 7% major crime for July 31st. Today we're at 10% reduction. 10% increase in violent crime, 5% increase in property crime, and 5%. So we're going down. We're trending down.
Okay. Why, I understand you had made comments that officers are leaving at unusual rates. Why is that?
Well, two things. One, we're losing about 3 officers a month. And again, that's through attrition, through retirements and resignations. Again, a lot of the officers have a staff member here who conducts exit interviews, and one is the pay. Even though the mayor put money in a budget for the pay compression, the step increases, there's still, you have to be reminded that in 2008, there was a budget crisis that hit everyone, to include the city of Richmond, and the officers were not paid for 5 years. They just started getting the pay compression last year. So it's a lot of, if you will, a lot of space to make up for as it relates to the pay. Again, what I'm pleased to hear is they're not leaving because of the work. They love the community. They love the law enforcement policing here in the city. But again, they say they have families they had to be concerned about and taking jobs everywhere. But a majority, I would tell you this also, what we're finding is, and we're all having challenges in the region because we're all trying to recruit from the same population, right? But the thing that's interesting, we just heard that the feds are telling their folks who are interested in becoming federal agents, go to a local police department first, get your feet wet, if you will, get your experience, and then we'll hire you. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm losing folks also to federal agencies.
We understand that last year, unbudgeted overtime for RPD was about just over $1 million. You had said yourself that with that $1 million, it could have been theoretically hired 15 full-time officers. Why isn't that what's happening, that logic isn't being used?
Well, first of all, the money's, it wasn't, I don't recall saying unbudgeted. It was, overtime is put in our budget. And you have to look at it. There's certain dynamics. That money right there was for specific overtime. If I'm down on officers, I got to still fill the seats in those police cars out there. So that's why I have to use the overtime budget. I couldn't use those dollars to hire because I got to have staffing. If I would have took, in other words, ma'am, if I would have took the little over $1 million and hired officers, we wouldn't have had officers to patrol the neighborhoods.
So it was budgeted overtime?
Oh, yes, it was budgeted,
Okay.
yes.
Do you believe that the shortage in officers right now has anything to do with the crime being up 12% this year?
I think we have to say that because, and the reason I say that, one, because I know we're not responding, our response time are lower, right? However, I hear it from the communities. We just don't see the police. So we have to take that into consideration.
So what are you doing as the chief to try to change that, to try to draw officers to come here and want to stay here and want to work in Richmond for the police department?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things, we have no problem doing the recruiting. We just got to find the funding to hire the officers.
And in terms of unsolved homicides right now, you had mentioned a big thing of getting the public to call in if they saw something. For the most recent one, the 33rd, the one from last weekend at the nightclub, any suspects right now? We spoke with the family, you know, obviously very emotional time, kind of frustrated. Do you have any suspects, any leads on that you can talk about?
Well, I can't talk about that one right now. But we are making progress. Let me put it like that.
All right. And anything else you want to say, just the importance of people calling if they know something and how that helps you guys in these investigations?
Yeah, I've said it time and time again. We say it at our community meetings. We need the community's help, right? We're in this together. And again, failing, and not to again steal fear when I make this comment, failing to report someone is armed with a weapon, who's a violent offender in the community, who's a threat to the community, and not report it, when you make that call, the life you may be saving may be your own. And that's just the reality. When we look at it again, I put the density map up, especially in our troubled area, our public housing communities. And sometimes it's a code of silence in there, and that's the thing, we talk about the flip side about, policing have a code of silence. Let's talk about the community's code of silence. And that's a larger population.
What do you guys do with that in terms of the public housing communities where they have this code of silence, where they don't want to talk to the police and they don't want to, quote unquote, rat each other out or say anything? How do you guys?
We're out there, ma'am. Again, we engage the community. And every time I go out, I told you I have a pocket full of cards. We go out, our officers, our sector lieutenants have monthly meetings. We put this information out. I mean, we're having a press conference here. Again, I thank you all because you get the message out. So we can only, you can only preach for so long, but we're going to keep preaching. And maybe somebody will hear us.
You mentioned acrimony and individuals who are making the officers' jobs more difficult. Can you name groups or?
Well, I'm not going to name groups. You all know you do the reporting. But again, it's just for us to tell our story and not to cut you off. It gets frustrating to me because I know the hard work that we do. And folks even tell some of my officers and tell me, Chief, you need to slow down. But we have a passion. We have a commitment for what we do. Because when that victim or that citizen pick up the phone and call, they have an expectation for us to be there. And again, as the mayor alluded to, the work that we're doing, we're basically overworked. We're taking on jobs and responses. We're not mental health professionals, but we train our people in crisis. We have crisis intervention teams. And so every time there's an issue that come up, the first thing we're doing, I got Captain Harvey Powers, who's in Charlotte County. We're on the phone. Hey, we need to look at this. What's the best practice? Let's get some training. So we're training and training and training. Because every time a problem comes up, guess what? When you call 911, we're the problem solvers.
Mayor Jones, is a budget amendment on the table to fund those vacancies that are occurring right now in RPD, the 35 officers?
Waiting for the police chief to give me a proposal, as I mentioned earlier. And once we find out what the proposal is, then we'll see what we can do to find resources.
You have 4 sectors in your patrol officers.
No, I have 4 precincts, 12 sectors.
Excuse me, 4 precincts. That's right. Your patrol officers work 12-hour, 10-hour shifts.
11 and a half hour shift.
What do you try to have per precinct? 12 officers on a shift?
Well, I don't deploy strategy, and that's important. You have to understand, just like we have plans and operations, the criminals, they watch us also. So I don't like putting it out. Again, I would tell you, there's no secret, we're short of staffing. We should be at 750, and again, we're down 36 officers today. I will tell you, I have 18 recruits in the academy.
You were at 690 recently, so sounds like you've added more people.
I was never at 690.
I've seen the article.
No, what you probably
699.
No, what you probably see, we captured it. You'll see 3 columns on the table. Authorized strength, what's actually boots on the ground, but then those that are unavailable. So it may have been 690 at that time because we have folks on military leave, folks on sick leave. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, last question? Yes, sir.
Chief Barry, I want to say that I really appreciate the command walk in my neighborhood. I've seen the difference of what the command walk does for the city of Richmond. And also I've seen what the officers do, keeping command and going into house to house, myself and the officers, and people really feel comfortable with that. So I want to say that's been a big plus for Richmond. Do that command walk wherever, and I've been offered to come to any neighborhood to walk with command walk. And the people have been really coming out. They really feel comfortable coming up to the house now when they see police officers walking down the neighborhood with neighbors, with the community people. I'm from a different neighborhood, and I'm coming out to another neighborhood to walk with the police officers. There's nothing in it for me. I just want to see neighborhood grow. And it's really been a big help. Mayor Jones, Chief Durham, and this group has really been doing a marvelous job. And I can say, when I was coming down here today, some next door neighbor of mine had somebody laying down on the porch. Police officer responded and the ambulance responded. So when people say response time, I don't see the problem. I mean, I don't, because I feel like the police department will make my neighborhood safe. So I want to thank you and the officers for that.
Thanks, Mr. Jones. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. All right, we're passing out the details of the 14 unsolved homicides, so you should have that, all the reporters, and this is available. We'll email you the PowerPoint should you want it. It'll eventually get posted on our website.